This is your host Neil Reddy Ray Bala, exploring all elements of the startup world here at Startup Chemistry. The need for giga factories, whenever we're talking about EVs, it's like always giga factories.
Connected to BCCI and we pitched that, hey, you guys should look at technology development. Like you develop coaches, like you develop pitches and stadiums. Why are you not developing technology?
The disposal of the battery once the usage is done, that is another cause of concern.
EVs have to be understood and oriented towards certain use case. Right now, the biggest adoption that we all are seeing, especially in the car industry, passenger vehicle segment, is EV fleets.
Think of the changing battery technology, like lithium ion is something that gets most talked of is, or is most prevalent, but we're hearing things like hydrogen driven vehicles. Do you think the recent lithium finds that we have discovered in India, the reserves, that is going to make any material difference to our journey?
How can we build an intelligent car that triggers or almost predicts its component failure? So ride sharing is the next example, or last mile deliveries are places where there is mass utilization of vehicles and a lot of kilometers being put on each vehicle.
Hello and welcome. This is your host Neil Reddy Rebala bringing you another episode of Startup Chemistry's podcast. If you're someone who always wondered about deep tech startups and their founders, then this is the episode for you. The guest began his career working on a project for DARPA, known for solving impossible problems, which set him up for life to be a deep tech entrepreneur. In this episode, you're also going to learn a lot about entrepreneurship, electric vehicles, and mobility. Pratik Gupta is an engineer turned R&D driven entrepreneur. He is the inventor of many multi-million dollar products and interesting technologies such as player tracking seen in cricket. He is the CEO and co-founder of Gensol EVs, an electric vehicle manufacturer that builds passenger cars and cargo models. Without any further ado, let us jump into the conversation with Pratik. Hi, Pratik. Welcome to Startup Chemistry. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Hi, Neil, and good to be here and really excited to talking with you. I think this session should be very impactful for people who are looking for help. And thanks for doing this for the ecosystem. I think more of this definitely helps the Indian ecosystem.
Thanks a lot, Pratik. Pratik, you are an engineer turned entrepreneur. So, could you just give us a little bit of your background to begin with, and then we will expand upon it?
Yeah, I've been extremely fortunate, in my journey that I've stumbled upon, opportunities and definitely the kind of people that I have worked with in the past, starting very core from R&D, work through projects which were extremely tech oriented, and then got interested into business development and started reading about how businesses are built, and then doing that myself since 2012. So as a journey, it has been extremely exciting. Overall, I don't see myself as an engineer or a business. I think I like to call myself as a solutions oriented kind of an approach. So those are things that are cornerstone for what I do. Overall, approach wise, I almost never fear approaching anybody, cold emailing, walking up to somebody. I think those are things that just have to happen for you to actually make an inroads into the system. So these are typically things that have guided me, throughout my journey. And but overall, very fortunate to the journey that I've walked so far.
Interesting, Pratik. So, you've also built many products and you have sold some of these products, right? Some of them being multi-million dollar products. Can you share some of the products that you've built and what you have done in the past?
Yeah, so I started my career working on a extremely challenging R&D project where we were working with helicopter systems and suspension systems. This was back in US. Since the time I moved to India 2012, we have worked on several solutions around embedded systems and control systems. Starting my journey with Pharma, building camera systems that are extremely high speed automation, where you're looking for micron level defects in pharma products, and that is extremely challenging, from a systems design point of view. But then there are deployment issues that you also have to take care of. So that part was super exciting, and we did that for a few years starting. And then also, at some point we somehow got connected to BCCI, and we pitched that, hey, you guys should look at technology development. Like you develop coaches, like you develop pitches and stadiums, why are you not developing technology? Why is Hawkeye coming from UK or Australia? Why can't it come from India? And that got us started talking to them. And one of the projects that we worked with them was player tracking, where on live TV, can you track players? How fast are they running? Where are they located? And that is something that we worked on with BCCI over a couple of IPL seasons. Did Champions Trophy deployment on that. On and then moving into solar and energy, we worked closely with Mahindra Group to develop technologies in India for Indian conditions, catering to the solar market. Towards the end of that engagement, we developed like a two-ton electric vehicle for them that can go and automatically clean solar panels. And that's what got us into EVs, and we kind of started looking at the market from that point of view. And then, the whole journey of starting from developing systems for automation and then moving into EVs has been exciting. And one thing led to the other, and that's how we got here.
So yeah, a lot of people struggle to get even a single idea or a problem to solve for, identify that. But it's been a continuous series of products and solutions that you've put out over the years. So how does that happen? Do you not struggle to get these ideas, or do you continuously keep getting the ideas that you have to chase to your mind?
Yeah, I think fortunately or unfortunately, I have a lot of ideas coming in my head. Mainly, maybe because of I worked in R&D, so you're always looking at solutions oriented view of the world. So yeah, for me, ideas are not that difficult to get, but again, there is an internal filter mechanism that you need to build, and you kind of learn that while you're doing things. Things like defensibility, things like is it going to scale? Is the market large enough? These are things that you need to that are critical for an idea to become a company. And that too a company which can survive multi decades. Those are things that are really important for me when I kind of choose something that I'm working on. Not always have we decided the right problem to solve, but you kind of start developing that intuition over the years. And with especially with this EV idea, when we kind of stumbled upon it, we found such a big insight into the industry, that we said that this is exactly what we wanted to, or we should be building, that nobody else is building. So let's get into it. But yeah, it's more about the mindset, the intuition that builds. You get it from doing things. You get it from talking to other entrepreneurs. You get it largely from also talking to VCs and investors. When they ask those hard questions, you always kind of have to come back and recheck, am I thinking right? So those are all critical ecosystem interventions that help you. So keeping that learning mind and keeping us solutions oriented, I think those are two important things that helps an entrepreneur a lot.
Got it, Pratik. So I would love to double click on that EV and how did you find the space to solve for within that sector a little later. But more immediately, does this engineering mind help? Like you said, it comes out of R&D for you, right? So does this engineering mind help in running this deep tech business? Um, and if yes, how does it help?
Yeah, it totally depends on what field are you working in. If you're working on completely tech oriented and research oriented, or IP governed field, then being an engineer helps, because you are trained to kind of uh, look at the problem differently, and you're looking at logical solutions. But entrepreneurship as a whole, I wouldn't call it that engineers make best entrepreneurs. I think it's the field is wide open. The
Mhm.
markets see it more from a company meeting the demand. So
Mhm.
if you go from a market's point of view, then understanding the market dynamics is a huge part. And that's where a lot of engineers have to unlearn what their training has been, and learn learn how to work in this capitalist ecosystem and learn what the market dynamics are. I think those are critical aspects that you need to pick up as an entrepreneur, be it engineering background or non-engineering background. But definitely, if you're starting something in a very tech-oriented field, being an engineer gives you a leg up in many ways.
Got it. So you you kind of answered my next question in a way. So my next question was going to be, if somebody wants to build in the deep tech space and they don't have any technology background or engineering background, can they still do that? And if yes, how do they bridge for the knowledge gaps and other things?
I think deep tech or tech, as in we have enough examples around us. Like Boat was founded by somebody who's not an engineer. So it's about what kind of skills you have, and also identify what you don't have, and surround yourself with the right team who can kind of build for that. Non-tech founders can definitely build out tech teams, but again, you have to realize what are your gaps and how do you fill those gaps, and those initial team members are very very critical for that. More than tech, I think your ability to transfer that excitement, your ability to transfer that vision to your immediate team is the most critical skill that can drive a company much faster than others, and you can kind of grow at a bigger scale. So a non-tech founder can definitely take a dive into a tech oriented business, if they do the things right,
Mhm.
like I said.
Uh, So, in such cases, like be it a tech entrepreneur or a non-tech entrepreneur, is there any framework at least that you apply in terms of how do you identify a gap and then marry tech and the market to produce successful products or solutions?
See, I think again, you should kind of entrepreneurship is also a journey towards self-discovery. You realize if you're great at sales, then you double down on that and you try to pick up ideas which are great at scale. If you're a great organizer or you're a great program manager, then you kind of take up projects like that. So I think one, you realize what you are good at and what you're not good at. Like if I had to kind of get into something that was about solving for agri. Like clearly I have a gap there that I don't understand, agriculture that well. But in that, am I good in tech? Am I good in sales? Then who are the immediate hires that I would be doing? I think that is the framework that I think works across the board. And typically, that's how a company can be built around a problem solving situation.
That's very insightful, Pratik. So, identify your strengths, build a business around that, and add components to that core. Uh,
Sure.
got it. That actually reminds me of a book where I read a similar phrase, but then, yeah, it takes me back to that. I didn't know if it would really work, but coming from the horse's mouth, now I do trust that advice that I read in the book many years back. Pratik, so something that I was personally very excited was to understand the EV market from you. By during this conversation, that was going to be one major thing that I was definitely going to touch upon. So uh, let's begin talking about the EV market as such, right? Like, uh, before we deep dive further into it, one of the things that synonymously comes up whenever we're talking about EV is sustainability. So, let's begin with probably understanding what is the role of EV in sustainability, and if you could enlighten us, that would be great.
Yeah, as in this is a constant thing, and this question keeps coming up in various ways. In this journey, uh, are EVs actually sustainable? Is it really green? And my way of looking at it is that it's a journey, right? As in the ecosystem is developing, the more and more. On paper, a lot of part of the world is right now. If you drive an EV, it's not any greener than ICE engine vehicles, but even that can be unpacked a little bit. If you're talking about urban pollution, which is causing tens and thousands of deaths in each major Indian city, just removing the particulates or the pollution from that very densely populated areas is definitely something that EVs, regardless of how you look at it, it is helping, or it will help when we scale as a EV industry. But if you look at it from a carbon footprint emissions point of view, a large part of the world right now isn't. But you also have to see that a solution cannot be waiting for the ecosystem to change. The ecosystem is changing. More and more percentage of grid is becoming greener. While that is happening, there needs to be significant investment going into EV manufacturing, EV parts manufacturing, the supply chain getting into a picture. So as the market grows and matures, in other aspects as well, and the EV industry has to work. So we can't be waiting for the grid to become completely green before we start that effort. I think every industry right now is pushing, and the government, every responsible corporate is getting involved in this, and this is probably the need of the hour. Otherwise it will be too late, as everybody knows. So I think that is how I see it. We might not be there right now, but this is a journey we all need to start almost immediately.
Got it. What's Do you have any comments on, like, the mining material that does let me rephrase this. Like, one of the things that commonly called out, right, is how the material for batteries or other things is mined, and then that can be quite polluting. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, again, I think that's another thing, right? As in, imagine like 10 years ago how much lithium was being mined and what was the business model there. Now that there is a significant and a scalable demand there, bigger organizations are getting in, regulations are getting in. So this is how all industries start. Like textile in 50, 60, 70 years ago in India was hugely polluting, but with time things do progress. As the market matures, there's more investment, there's more policy, there's more governance. So I think now that this has become like everybody's written on the wall that EVs are going to really change the way we commute and work. I think now you will see a lot of those changes coming in, and that's how typically any change happens. It's not a flip switch that immediately it will happen. I think all these things will come into place, and currently there are some major changes that are happening in way it's mined, with new mines being discovered in various parts of the world. I think those are being approached quite differently than how the old mine areas are being worked. So I think overall this is step in the right direction. We'll have to give the system time enough to come to a point where we all can be fairly okay with the way things are being mined. But currently, there are some problematic areas, and I'm pretty much sure that these things will sort itself out as the industry grows.
Got it. Is the industry also thinking about the disposal of the battery once the usage is done? That is another cause of concern, right? What are your thoughts on the battery disposal, and how is the battery going to be handled after the use is done, and things on
Yeah,
that?
this is a major area for us and many people in the ecosystem. From our side, what we have decided to do is in EVs. It's a little bit more technical, but let me kind of unpack this a little bit.
Sure.
In EVs there are different voltages that your systems can be on. You can start from as low as 48 volt or 36 volt and go up to hundreds of volts. I think 800 volts is what Teslas are running right now. And you always has a choice as a solutions provider or as an OEM, that what is the voltage that you choose. Currently, for our vehicles, we've chosen to be at 48 volts, and we get this question time and again. But it's a very conscious decision, because you can, of course, go higher in voltages, and that increases efficiency and does other things to the system, which makes it easier. But also remember that a lot of these cars are going to be on the road. There's going to be a huge pile up of waste batteries. But in our case, being 48 helps us being directly a replacement to the UPS system. So all the mobile towers, all the stationary UPS systems, all your server farms that can be that can this batteries can be adopted right away. When you take a 800-volt battery and try to repurpose it to a 48-volt system, there's a lot of cost involved in that, and that is something that can lead to maybe the business case not working out and that goes into a landfill. But when you're working on a 48-volt system with large part of storage already works on, there's a huge advantage where these batteries. So our batteries, after spending 7 to 10 years in our cars, will then live another 10 years in a stationary application. So that's how we see it, and we consciously decided to stay at a certain voltage. But as a company, as an organization, we are always looking at what next for all the materials that are used in the car, not just the battery. Where can the motors be used? Can they be repurposed? Can they be refurbished? So this is a constant effort, and it requires proper action and plans to execute. But I think the industry needs to kind of be mindful of that as well as we are growing and scaling fast.
It's just fantastic about just knowing the way you're thinking about the repurposing. It's really amazing. um, I wish more people are thinking about it on those lines, and we find more ways to repurpose these vehicles. I'm sorry, I meant the batteries. um, Now, let us also understand the EV market in general. Like, you're talking about the volts, 46 volts, 800 volts, and somewhere in my mind, I was like trying to understand, could this be for different categories or like what it is? But let us also unpack what is the various segments that we have in the EV market of India. If you could please provide us an overview of sorts, that would be a great uh, place to begin with.
Yeah, as in when we started the journey in 2016, this is the insight that we tried to get to. As in, when we looked at the automotive industry, it looked fairly clear that for personal mobility, for shared mobility, the use cases were around two-wheelers and four-wheelers. That's how the industry looked at it. And even today, the industry looks at it like two-wheelers and four-wheelers. The three-wheelers are considered as people movers and low-cost options and such. But when you look at it more from a physics point of view, or even before that, if you look at it from a startup point of view, you can create a two-wheeler company and scale it up from there. But you also have to understand the business aspect of it. It's a low margin, high volume game, and to reach those volumes, you will need to raise funds continuously, because you're serving a market which is quite big, and the technology part of it is a player there, but it's not a huge differentiation that you can create yourself over there. So that's why we never got into the two-wheeler, OEM. But when you look at four-wheelers, you again go back to what the customer requires. Like 60% of small cars are bought as a second car or third car in the family now in India. So the way Indians are buying and using their car is quite different as opposed to a decade ago. When you look at that kind of a profile, you discover that there is a large part of cars being used to commute from work to home, and those kind of applications. And that's where we've seen that, when we moved from petrol, diesel to CNG, we saw large adoption there because you have a huge cost saving, you have a major, pollution advantage. And just looking at that industry has grown 6 times in the last 5 years alone, right? And that's the market that if we are able to serve with the EV component or a EV offering, I think that is where we found our market, or we want to grow as a business. When you look at that solution, you're talking about a customer who's maybe one or two people in the car driving 50 to 80 kilometers a day, looking at a petrol bill of maybe a lakh plus per year. Can we serve that customer with the EV option, which is a two-door, two-seater car, and much more easier to drive with the technologies that can be helping them, with like automated driving interventions and those kind of things. And then bring it at a price point which is, we are down to a 40 paise per kilometer. That reduces their monthly fuel cost down to less than 5,000 rupees. So that is the kind of advantage that EV can be providing, especially a micro mobility solution like us. Micro mobility solution like ours is 20 times cheaper to operate than petrol variants, and 7 times, 8 times cheaper than CNG. And as we go forward, petrol, CNG, all of these are on the higher curve of pricing. And while the battery pricing is coming down, utility prices are coming down on electricity side of things. So there are a lot of advantages there. So once you look at the EV industry as a whole, and also look, map the customer requirement on top of it, I think then you start seeing gaps in the market where you can build a business around, and you can actually make a big difference and make a scalable platform that sees mass adoption and actually brings about a change in how people use EVs and think about EVs.
Got it. But 40 paisa per kilometer is like, that's really cheap. Uh,
Yes.
feels surreal. So, so Pratik, I believe the how you approach the market too is different for EVs when compared to internal combustion engine driven vehicles, be it at a dealership level or otherwise. Could you elaborate a little bit on the differences that you have noticed and how you're working around those differences?
Yeah, when you look at EVs right now, they come at a cost of 70 to 80% premium on their counterparts. So expecting large adoption of EV platforms is something that is not going to happen till the price parity hits, and price parity is at least 4 or 5 years out from here on. What the way we see it, and large parts of the market see it, is EVs are great for certain purpose oriented approaches, right? Like I talked about working professionals going to work, and they being like, the fuel cost saving is a huge thing that can help them adopt to EVs at a rapid scale. What are the other areas where there is high mileage? So ride sharing is the next example, or last mile deliveries are places where there is mass utilization of vehicles and a lot of kilometers being put on each vehicle. So those are places, if EVs are designed towards, can create a large difference in terms of total cost of ownership, overall driving experience, and those are the places where EVs can be plugged in from a customer adoption point of view. When you talk about dealers, I think dealership itself is going through a change right now, where dealership models were largely dependent on service revenue. Those definitely reduce as you go into EVs, because there are less moving parts, so less things that can break. So we are kind of seeing this transformation of buying online and roadside assistance or mobile van servicing options. These are things that will develop over the next few years, where we'll probably see a multi brand dealerships come up, and these are kind of transformations that the dealer industry will go through. So EV, like every time a complete change of technology occurs, there are every part of the ecosystem has to rethink, has to be redesigned. Even financing, to talk about, right? EV financing right now is a huge challenge, because there's no residual value that can be talked about, because there is no inventory that is done at mark scale, which is getting bought second hand, third hand, and all of that. So even those industries are to serve the EV customer, are rethinking how we can figure out the risks, how can we figure out the residual values. So this is typical for any transformation that happens. We all remember when Nokia was trying to build the phone smaller with three days of battery life and such. And then when iPhone hit, or touchscreen phones became big thing, everybody moved to bigger phones, and they wanted it even more bigger. And less than a day battery life didn't really hinder. So if you actually provide a superior solution, markets and customers will adapt and will appreciate that, and then everything around that then changes accordingly. So we are seeing this transition happen right now. I think the two-wheeler industry is at the forefront of it, where the adoption rate is around, I think, 7 or close to 10% in the next few quarters. The three-wheeler industry, from a traditional auto rickshaw point of view, already has seen a mass change, and the car industry is just starting to see the change. So as we go into this transformation period, I think there are a lot of gaps here that can be a great business opportunity for people who are looking at building companies, building solutions around it.
Got it. Uh, while you're talking about this transformation, right, the other thing that was coming to my mind was also the lack of standardization, which comes along with transformation, which could pose challenges. Like when I think about something like micro mobility, it might not apply so much, but let's say a longer duration, longer lasting EV solutions, like if I want to go on the highways or things like that. One of the pain points is that the battery swap. So, like, how are we going to really charge? Uh, so for those kind of things, standardization is somewhat important. How do you see the industry moving? Are there going to be battery swaps? Are there going to be any standardization of batteries, or are we going to just see faster charging and far many more charging points along the routes? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think there's no one answer to all these questions that you're raising. I think again you have to look at it from use case point of view. If you're operating, a delivery service partner operation like delivery or any of these services, there the use cases are quite straightforward, where there's a distribution center and then there are all these points that the delivery happens. There, establishing, battery swap is more straightforward, but doing it across the city where everywhere there is a spare battery, I think battery cost itself is around 40% of the vehicle cost. So having 40% of your asset being parked is something that doesn't work for many business models.
Mhm.
So again, these having standardized batteries is a good thing, but is only applicable to certain use cases. And when you try to do this at scale, there are challenges around that. Are enough OEMs going to sign up for it? Is there enough density in that area?
Mhm.
So those are things that are hindering the adoption of battery swaps right now. And going forward, batteries are becoming much more long lasting in terms of the range that you get for the vehicle. The charging times are coming down. So overall, I think that technology will find it a little struggling to take off. Apart from certain use cases, of course, I think those will still make sense. But on a mass scale, I think those are a little challenging to kind of come in, and especially when you are, you're talking about cars and buses. The batteries are way too bigger, and the way too much money that is going to be locked into assets which are lying unutilized or underutilized. I think then the business cases become even more difficult, and that's where everybody's talking about fast charging. Everybody's talking about having more chargers around, to kind of help the ecosystem grow from there. So my view on battery swaps is, I think it's going to be limited and it's going to become more and more difficult as the ecosystem grows.
Got it. And government seems to be coming up with a lot of policies, like be it the FAME or the PLI schemes or various other things to support this EV ecosystem, and then they're really setting targets for 2030 and stuff like that to give a positive momentum. What's your take on that? Is it really helping the industry? Um, are you able to enjoy the fruits of all these policies? Any suggestions for the government's policies for changes or anything on that front?
Yeah, I think there are three aspects of that as well. One is directly helping adoption. So we've seen the success of FAME 2, that it led to mass two-wheeler adoption, mass car adoption, and even ride-hailing services are being set up just to serve that customer using EVs. Those are all actual petrol vehicles or diesel vehicles off the road even today. So it's kind of uh, undebatable that those didn't help, or that is not helping now every day. But that is a more direct view on that. But you also have to understand that the other aspect of it is the multiplication factor. Once the demand sets in and there is a proper set demand, bigger organizations will start investing into EV ecosystems. There will be more EV parts manufacturer here in India, and that brings you to the third one, where you can do import substitution. You can, once the private players have a clear path to profitability, clear business goals, I think that's when the real private money comes start flowing into the ecosystem. And that's where you will see a lot of much faster adoption of EVs. I think everybody talks about 2030 being a point where we're going to start seeing mass adoption. I think that can happen much faster if the government continues to kind of build this PLI scheme and keep bolstering it. The only thing was less variability would help, because again markets are not that excited to see variance in policy making. Yeah, so if the policy continues and it stays for enough period of time without being modified, I think that can really trigger a lot of money coming into EV investments, and that will drive the ecosystem from there on.
So, Pratik, infrastructure is a big component of this transition into EV, and there is a demand for a lot of infrastructure that needs to get built out. Right. With that being said, could you simplify, demystify this? What are the various components of this infrastructure that needs to be built out, and who are building these components in the market today?
Sure. As in, apart from the ecosystem of suppliers, vendors, and battery manufacturers, I think those are something that are being built right now. But outside of that, there needs to be more transmission lines coming into cities to serve to deliver that kind of power that will be required. Down to housing societies having enough transmission lines coming in to serve this additional requirement of charging EVs, be it at night or during the day. And also from point of view of just serving the mass mobility adoption of EVs, having public charging infrastructure, and those all need to kind of be built together as we see more and more EV adoption going to happen. Who's building that? Again, there are many players and there are different kinds of money that is coming into the picture. There is, when people talk about fund flow, there is one fund flow which is short term, there's fund flow which is long term, there's fund flow towards asset development. So we all have to kind of build these out and create opportunities for private sector to come into this and invest and develop this along with the government. The government can only do so much. I think when the market sees, and you can see this as in the last 5 years, we saw a lot of two wheelers being bought, and now you see a lot of infrastructure built. Many public places now have public charging infrastructure being built or already developed, and this is only going to grow from here. So that's how what I was talking about is multiplication factor of government policy. If the government policy is in place, you see private money coming in and building businesses on top, and that can accelerate a lot of growth very quickly. And that is the path that we all need to kind of be mindful of and create that avenues for that to come in.
Sure. Jumping places a bit here, Pratik. What do you think of the changing battery technology? Like lithium ion is something that gets most talked of or is most prevalent, but we're hearing things like hydrogen driven vehicles, and off late something on ammonia is coming up. So, what's your take on this battery technology? Where do you think that is headed?
I think there are various solutions being developed. Again, for some batteries have certain advantages. Some battery technologies have different kind of advantages. Some are more like if you look at zinc oriented batteries, those are almost 100% recyclable, but they are a little heavier, a little bigger. So there are some applications where they can be utilized. Maybe not for two wheelers, they can be utilized for cars or buses. Then there is LTO, which is towards fast charging, so it can charge within 15 minutes.
Sorry for interrupting. Could you expand on what LTO is?
So LTO is a chemistry which allows you to kind of have a deep discharge or a very fast discharge and charge again, and that is a technology which can be utilized for two wheelers having very fast charging ability. Like within minutes you can recharge and get back on the road. But again, those come at a higher price and again higher volumetric space. What we see market in the market right now, most cars in India use LFP technology, which is again lithium based technology, but it's a slightly different variant of it, where it gives you over 2000 cycles of cycles of charge, and it's again at a price point which is very useful in India, and also the weather conditions in India are quite okay with that chemistry. Then you have NMC, which is again a lithium based technology, which is what is used in mass adoption of two wheelers right now. They are much lighter, much more compact. So there are different technologies that are serving different kind of market. From an outside point of view, it might look like, oh, these are all batteries, but once you get into the ecosystem, you realize that there is a lot to understand here, and predicting which one will prevail is very difficult. But you can quickly figure out patterns that in this kind of an application, in a bus kind of application, what will work. Especially when you talk about hydrogen, right? Hydrogen already is proving to be very beneficial for long distance trains or buses kind of an application. When you look at LFP technology, it's driving mass adoption across the globe on all cars. When you talk of NMC technology, that is helping all the two-wheeler industry. So this is going to be, going out. This is going to grow in all directions, and I think that's good in a way, because then dependency on each kind of resource is also not pinched. If everybody is running towards the same resource, everybody is adopting the same resource, then again you're going to have the same problem where we're all locked into that same supply chain. So having a variance on that is extremely good and extremely helpful. Also helps more innovation come into the market. So I think standardization on that side might not be that good for the industry. Standardization on safety protocols is great. I think that is something that we all should be kind of building more as the ecosystem grows. But standardization on the chemistry is something that I think we should stay away, and we should let the technologies drive the solutions from here on.
Indeed, there is a lot to understand. Thanks for that very insightful answer. Uh, this was something that I wasn't exposed to before. Mm, And other question that I was always curious about, probably most people are, is like the need for giga factories. Whenever we're talking about EVs, it's like always giga factories. Why? Can you elaborate? Why do we need giga factories or factories of such big scale when it comes to EVs?
Uh, so when you look at the BOM cost of a typical vehicle, like I said, 40% sometimes is what the battery component is. So that is the single biggest component that you are investing in, or you are paying to a third party. So backward integration on that one makes complete sense for any OEM or any bigger player here. And then when you get into that, there is cell manufacturing part of it, and then there's battery pack manufacturing part of it. So 70% of kind of value is locked into the cell manufacturing, and 30% of the value is locked into cell pack. I'm just broadly speaking here, but that's the split. So first, most the first part that people do is they get into cell pack manufacturing. When you do pack manufacturing, you have better control on the kind of electronics, the kind of quality, and of course, there's cost benefit on that. Once you unlock that, then you can walk back the path of setting up your cell manufacturing. So like once the markets are big enough, I think those are investments that are natural for an OEM or car manufacturers or vehicle manufacturers to get into. Uh, until now, we haven't seen that kind of scale in India, but I think we are just getting started with Ola is doing something around it, and we are also planning to do something around that. It's too early to kind of talk about it right now, but these are natural part to to that hitting more profitability, being more price competitive in the market, because this is the single biggest item that you have on your vehicle. So this becomes the thing that you want to invest and safeguard.
Got it. Let me jump back to the Indian market again. So, with a lot happening, where do you see the Indian market heading in the next 5 years? How do you see things evolving?
Yeah, I think if you look at Indian car industry, we all have seen the graphs where it can range from 50% adoption in next by 2030 to down to 18%, 12% adoption is what projected projection variants are. I think those are all dependent on many factors. It's very difficult to kind of put a number right now. 5 years from now, I think it totally depends on what kind of companies are built here. Just walk back to the point when Tesla was started. Both GM, Mercedes, even Ford had given up on EVs completely, and Tesla came into picture. They delivered a solution which the customer liked, and that kind of spurred the entire world's adoption of EVs. I think those people kind of discount that factor when they forecast things. I think when you're forecasting things, you have to realize that there might be products or there might be companies which can innovate, at a much faster. If you go 5 years ago, where before Nexon EV was on the market, I think the realistic numbers were much lower. But Nexon EV, came out as a product which is very much, in the ballpark of what Indians want to buy, want to use, and it's a very commendable product, and we saw large adoption of that. So it's very difficult to kind of predict this, but overall trends say that my belief is we are going to outperform all the graphs that are out there. But again, it involves making those kind of bold decisions, especially when we look at micromobility. That is not a category right now in the Indian ecosystem, and we coming in with a product, and if there's mass adoption around that, we definitely can surpass all the projections that are there for this passenger vehicle segment. But those are things that we will kind of see in the next 5 years. I am extremely bullish. I think overall the macros are really in place. The government is behind it. There's a large private driven money that is flowing in. It's the technology right now at a point where it's dependable. It is scalable. So there's nothing stopping it. So my personal belief is extremely bullish on adoption rates of all sorts of EV solutions from here on.
And do you think the recent lithium finds that we have discovered in India, the reserves, that is going to make any material difference to our journey?
Of course, as in any of these reserves or any kind of mineral mining will help. But again, markets have a ability to, have a tendency to, maybe kind of over exaggerate the potential or the timelines. I think, from what I know, it is a multi-year project before we kind of see that coming into the supply chain. But again, it is a great start. It's a great thing. More such, this will also drive more such excavations around not just India but across the globe. So these are all great pointers towards that. But we all need to kind of take it with a little bit of understanding that this is not going to materialize in the next year or two. It is going to take its time. Setting up a mine and infrastructure around that, also setting up refineries that can actually make it usable for cell manufacturers to use it as an end battery, material. These are all things that will require, setting up a lot of infrastructure, which will take time. But again, these are all great indicatives and always going to help us reduce our import burden from here on.
A lot of exciting things to watch out for in the next few years.
Yeah.
Now, Pratik, we're going to move to the one of the segments that I've been waiting for. That is to talk about the Gensol EVs. And before we do that, to the viewers, Gensol EVs is a company that Pratik leads as the CEO, and he's also the co-founder, as mentioned earlier. And Gensol EV probably, as you're noticing in the Pratik's background, is a very interesting concept of a car that's going to be unveiled. We're going to hear more about it from Pratik. So let's jump right into it. Uh, Pratik, let's introduce Gensol EV to our viewers, what it is, and also the transition from Storm for a little bit of a context setting, and then we can further discuss more things that are going to come up from Gensol EV's end.
Yeah, so I'll start with the product first because that's the most exciting part. We are bringing a micromobility solution to the Indian market and also to the global market. Again, a very not been done before kind of a product. This is a two-door, two-seater car, complete feature-rich in terms of HVAC, in terms of having all the comforts, having multiple touch screens, having advanced MI driven ML driven data science behind it. So it's a very exciting product with a super performance. Once people start driving it, or people who have been given test drives, it feels like a super light platform that can actually help you wind around the Indian roads and park very 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 in small areas. So that's the passenger vehicle offering that we are building to bring into the market. We're also bringing a cargo variant on top of it for last mile delivery. Again, this is a completely redesign of the cargo vehicles that we see around town. which have a very high bed height. What our vehicle has is very low entry height, and gives you all the ability to load unload very fast for the last mile delivery solution. So these are the two product lines that we are bringing to the market. Our journey started as Strom Motors in 2016. We have had lot of exciting development from there on, where we first unveiled the concept in 2018. We got hundreds and thousands of pre-bookings, and then we also got homologation in 2019. During COVID, we had to kind of step back a little bit and hold fort for some time. And once we got out of COVID, we were looking for partners, and that's where Gensol Group. So just a little bit on the Gensol Group part of things. Gensol is a very established player in the solar business. Their core business is solar O&M and solar EPC, and they are a listed entity, and they have a good track record of delivering and working around sustainable solutions. And partnering with them was just like a natural fit, because everything they do in all the businesses that they run are around sustainability, and that was very very important from our point of view when we kind of choose the partners we want to grow with. And since then we have now scaled up to, we were down to about less than 10 people in the company. Now we are more than 150 people. We have a brand new plant which is recently commissioned, which has a peak capacity of 30,000 vehicles a year. Fantastic team around it, and super excited to kind of bring this product to market. So in the next few months we will see these vehicles on the road, and we can't be more excited about bringing this to the Indian consumer.
Very excited, Pratik. Pratik, is the specifications, the range, and the other things, is that public? Is that something that you can talk about at this point?
I think a lot of things are under wraps, but things that we can talk about, like I already said, it's a two-door, two-seater car,
Uh-huh.
and it's a reverse strike. What it means is it's two wheels in front, one in the back. What this gives us as an advantage is our weight of the vehicle is half that compared to a hatchback car, but we still have enough space that you have good two-seaters, in the cabin next to each other. Then we have a large storage area which can fit up to 5 suitcases. There's storage in the front. The vehicle itself, has an acceleration that beats almost every competition out there in the hatchback segment. We have a 200 plus kilometer of range. I already touched upon 40 paise per kilometer in terms of operating cost. Charging can be as low as less than 2 hours. So these are all things that are on the platform. But apart from this, there is a big tech aspect of it, that people will kind of discover once they start using the vehicle or seeing this vehicle on the road.
I have a lot of follow up questions here. So you already mentioned how you identify a gap earlier, but then like I'm still curious to understand how you arrived at this particular product, the design of this. So if you could please share some of that journey with us.
Yeah, so when we started looking at EVs, as something that we want to play a big part in, or we want to enter this field, we kind of saw the market more from a consumer centric point of view. The new age customer is looking at, is more independent, is looking at car as not a status symbol but more of a utility, is really sustainability or eco conscious in their purchase or in their choices. So to serve this kind of customer, especially in an urban area where we're all traveling distances and being in traffic for long periods of time in gas powered vehicles, petrol powered vehicles, it's a huge draw on on the kind of ecology of a certain city, and we see that in effect all across especially in the months that we are in right now. Delhi is going through its worst time of the year. So looking at that customer and how you solve for that customer is what led us to this kind of a platform. It's not that this is the first vehicle in this kind of a form factor. There have been vehicles in this form factor, but more from a petrol point of view. We are probably the number, we are the first few entrants in this from an EV point of view. The biggest advantage you get when you shift to a micro mobility platform is weight reduction. you cut down your weight by half. That increases your efficiency. That means you require a much smaller battery pack. You can charge much faster. You can provide a much more exciting performance to your customer. And of course you can build a very comfortable cabin in this form factor. It's as stable as a hatchback. So there are a lot of advantages, that we found. And once we did that, we also understood that you could do it two ways. You could have seat front and back, like a covered bike. But when we did some initial surveys, we realized that Indian customers see it slightly differently. When you have seats back in, if to be called as a car, you need to have side by side seating. You need to have a steering wheel. Those kind of things. You need to definitely have air conditioning. So those are things that we initially formulated as a must have, and then we added on top of things like sunroof. We added storage in the front, storage in the back, and those are the things that led us to this product design.
Mhm. And naturally, when we're talking about three wheelers, one of the first things that our mind goes to as an Indian is the auto rickshaws, right? So, didn't that deter you at all when you were coming up with such a bold design?
I think once you establish that this is a much superior product, both in terms of engineering, in terms of total cost of ownership, then you walk back from there and seeing that, what is the consumer perception. If we all remember, I don't know how many of our of your viewers are that old, but I remember when Santro came into India, and till then we had the Fiat Padmini and the Maruti 800, and both those were quite low, and this was much tall design. And everybody talked about, like, this is too tall, this is going to topple over. At one point Shah Rukh Khan did an ad where he was skidding around a tarmac, trying to show the stability of the vehicle. But once the product was launched, everybody started using it and became the highest selling car in India for a long time. When Wagoner came to India, everybody was talking about, this is a box, nobody's going to buy it, this looks very boring. But again, the product was great. It offered certain value, and people appreciated, loved it. Even today, it's one of the top selling cars in India. So I think as a customer, as a market, India is a great market to bring out new products, because people here understand the value, understand the product. Once they get to know the product a little better, from there on, the journey is completely product driven, market driven from there on. So our conviction is that this is the right product for the Indian market. This is the right product for a large portion of how we move around urban areas. And if we deliver a great product to that customer, I think from there on we don't have to worry about perceptions. Perceptions can change, and definitely will change with a good product, offering that kind of a value.
Got it, Pradeep. Yeah, and that apart, something else too that I've noticed, which is uh, more specifically in the case of Gensol EVs, is that you're very high on technology, right? Like, be it your data analytics or like uh, very bold approaches to things like autonomous driving and stuff like that. This is something that a lot of players, be it even the Teslas of the world, is really struggling with. And for an Indian firm, um, a startup that to take on such bold challenges, it's like quite brave and interesting at the same time. So would love to hear, why did you even start targeting those, and what's your approach to these technologies that you're talking that Gensol is focused so heavily on?
I think it all stems from, again, understanding our customer. We want to serve two kinds of customers. Once is the B2B, that is the ride hailing and the delivery market, and also the personal consumer here. Both those markets heavily depend on reliability of the vehicle, and how can we bring reliability to a platform. When you talk about a car, there are so many moving parts, there are so many sensors, so many controllers. How can we build an intelligent car that triggers or almost predicts its component failure? So imagine a fleet operator having 1,000 cars in a particular city. For them, the nightmare is that they need to keep track of what's going wrong in which of their cars, and when to schedule their servicing. Are the parts there? Any downtime of the vehicle can lead to business loss. So how to solve for that? So what we have developed is a vehicle control system that is extremely perceptive of everything in the car. Almost every moving part, every electrical part is mapped in data. So we call it having a digital twin of the car, on the cloud end. What that helps is you no longer have to worry about headlamp going off or wiper not working or some locks not working, your even your AC not having full efficiency. These are all things that we deliver to you as a platform. These are things that are enabled by the in car technology and also the cloud, which is based on machine learning and AI algorithms, which will predict these failures or alert you that these are the cars that needs a certain change, and those can be then scheduled during charging hours or during off peak hours. And these are things that honestly came out of understanding our customer better. I think the customer is in this day and age, if you have a sudden failure, it's not to the lack of, it shouldn't be for the lack of technology. I think there's enough technology around. People keep talking about IoT. This is an implementation of IoT, I would say. We've just pushed it to a max level, where we can predict when your brake pad needs a change, or when your tires can need a change, or where your AC is not performing to 100%. These are things that can be easily brought to the customer and delivered to them, in a certain way, so that it's usable, actionable items for them. So that is part on the vehicle digital twin technology part of the thing. On the automated driving part of it, again, when you see the ecosystem around the globe, everybody's talking about level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 level autonomy, going towards driverless car. But if you look at the Indian road condition, where there's no proper marking, there's potholes, and there's so much more confusion, and traffic is not really organized. How do you kind of deliver to that customer? A large part of our driving involves traffic, bumper to bumper traffic, and being behind somebody. Can you solve for that? What kind of technology exists that can solve for that? And those are things we're trying to solve. That can you lock onto the car in front, so if he moves 5 feet, you also move 5 feet. You don't have to shift the gear or press the accelerator. The car just literally follows the car in front. These are all technologies that already exist. It's about packaging it and making it usable, making it reliable for the customer. So every decision that we take in terms of, be it technology, be it any car feature, we try to understand that, will my customer appreciate this? Will this be helpful? At the end, will my customer pay for this? It all has to make business sense. Rather than trying to chase level of autonomy, I think we all should reorient our thought processes, like, how much of my customer's pain point am I solving with a certain technology? So when you talk about B2B players, if you can deliver a report that tells them that these are the changes that need to happen in these vehicles, I think that is really appreciated. For a personal consumer, if you're able to solve some of their pain points about urban driving, I think that's more going to be appreciated, and you can kind of develop a moat around it. So those are the driving factors behind the technologies that we're building. Again, we are just listening to our customer. We're not trying to chase any technical milestone. We're trying to serve our customer as best as we know, using the technology that is already existing.
Interesting. Your R&D team and your engineering team seems to have a lot on its hand going, given all that we have discussed just now. Can you speak a little bit about your R&D and engineering team?
Yeah, I think what we've managed to put together is a super excited bunch of people who have a lot of industry experience, but they just have been locked into silos in bigger companies, bigger organization. India has a lot of technology, but also a lot of automotive talent. There are only few countries that are bigger than Indian automotive sector. I think we are number two or number three in automotive manufacturing. That means there's a lot of workforce here who's super smart, but just has to kind of function in a certain way because of the structure of their companies that they're bringing in. So we are always on the lookout of people who are willing to take the chance and jump the ship to a startup. Imagine somebody working in much bigger organization, which has a multi-decade, sometimes more than a century old tradition and pedigree, jumping into a startup. That itself tells a lot about the kind of profile of the people that are here. These guys have the talent, have the training, have the experience of automotive, but are also knowing that what needs to change for the new customer. The new customer requires a completely different kind of vehicle, kind of experience, kind of service that has to be delivered. So putting together a very experienced and risk taking team is a delicate balance that we are trying to achieve here. And every day we get a lot of people who are joining in and bringing in new ideas onto the table, and this is all going to contribute towards a product which is world class, and serving a large portion of the world, not just Indian market.
That's a great bunch of people. It sounds like. Pratik, you were also touching about your upon your business model, but I wanted to uh, listen a little bit more to it. You're talking about B two B, B two C, and ride hailing components in the B two B. Can you call out your business model and how you're thinking about it to our viewers, please?
Yeah, so like I said, EVs have to be understood and oriented towards certain use case. Right now, the biggest adoption that we all are seeing, especially in the car industry, passenger vehicle segment, is EV fleets. Blue Smart is a connected company to our Gensol ecosystem. Anmol is the common founder between the two, and they have clearly shown. I think just day before they completed 10 million kilometers, 10 million rides on their platform. That clearly shows that there is a customer base out there who wants to take up an EV ride, is careful, is conscious about what are their choices even when going towards ride hailing. So the market is big on that and growing. Just Delhi alone has over 40,000 cabs. If those can be converted into EVs, and then you look at Bangalore, which is similar size kind of a market, then you look at Bombay and so many other cities here. So the market on that side is extremely big, and already the total cost of ownership and that on all the business parameters are already in favor of EV adoption. Right now, the limitations that they have is not having enough cars, not having enough cars that can serve their clients for a particular market. If you look at ride hailing as a business, 70% of their riders are single occupants. They are looking for a ride from a metro station or airport to a office or to their homes. These are people who can be served very much with a micro mobility solution. And bringing out, when you move to micro mobility solution as a ride hailing operator, you can bring down your cost by 40%, and that can be transferred into the customer, to the customer. And that is the kind of business advantage that we can provide to our ride hailing operators. When you talk about cargo movement, last mile delivery is something that has exploded in the recent past, given COVID and all the push, overall. That market is also massively adopting EVs and giving a solution which is oriented towards last mile mobility. Last mile delivery is something that again creates a big business opportunity for us. And we also look at it at global level. Europe is going to soon stop allowing non-EV deliveries in major cities. That market will become one of the biggest markets for our kind of product offerings. So overall business point of view, we know that there is a huge potential to unlock cost benefits for a B2B operator, be it ride hailing or delivery. And those are clients that we will be serving first, and then moving into personal mobility. Like I already said, that working professionals, second or third car in the family, these are all places where we have seen mass adoption of CNGs. I think we are selling close to 5 lakh CNG vehicles, yeah, every year now. And that is again a big market that we are 7 times more cost effective, and more, of course, zero emissions, so more cleaner, and that customer segment is again something that we will be going for, along with people who are choosing to go sustainable in their transportation requirements. So these are all big market opportunities that we are kind of building for, and we completely understand the scale at which we will need to build to serve all these markets. And that's why when we started our journey, we kept our manufacturing capacity to 10,000. When once we started to talk to ecosystem players, and we once started doing some market surveys, we quickly realized that we are completely downsizing our, undersizing our requirement. And that's where we kind of did some re-engineering, redesigning around the product, around the manufacturing. And our current Pune factory can churn out 30,000 vehicles a year. So these are the market opportunities that we are going for, and we are trying to build for scale to serve the Indian and the international markets.
That's great to know, Pratik. Have a lot of questions more for you, but then we are at the end of our episode, so probably some other time. We wish
Sure.
you the very best for the Gensol EV and your journey ahead. But until next time, any final comments from you, Pratik?
No, I think it's great that we had this talk, and I hope it helps clear out a lot of things about EVs in general, and also startups. Broadly, or towards what does it take. I think Indian entrepreneurs are one of the best in the world. It's about we kind of understanding that it's about market dynamics and bring that flavor into whatever we develop. I see a lot of startups that are solving great problems, but how to actually apply it to market is where the next leap needs to happen. And having chats like this, will definitely help in the ecosystem. So thanks for doing this, and looking forward to more such episodes with other exciting entrepreneurs from you guys.
Thank you, Pratik. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
If you liked what you watched and found it insightful and interesting, please do like, share, subscribe, and follow Startup Chemistry.